Welcome to Sam Outside. I'm Sam and I'm outside. I've taken a couple steps off my main trail today to really investigate the impact of the three beaver that happen to be calling Hart Lake home for this season. So normally one or two, but to have three mature beaver uh, browsing through the forest and creating food caches enough to maintain 5 to 6 months worth of food, more specifically deciduous bark from a variety. There's been a lot of activity. In fact, as I walk along the shore of Hart Lake, there's just these drag marks, and it looks like someone's taken a rake from 50 feet, 100 feet up the bush and and cleared a path. And what's the beaver? So because they've literally taken everything from the shore, I was never able to see the shore from the path. The water, it was always too dense, too thick. But every day I'm noticing just it's getting a little more and more clear. And now that I've taken a couple steps offshore, yeah, it's actually quite hazardous, and I'm a little concerned about, so we've got a forest full of these little skewers. So you can generally tell how large the beaver is at war, or maybe even a better indication is what time of year were the beaver browsing. I mean, if the beaver does not get enough food in its cache, it will resort to leaving the safety of the ice in winter, coming up and trying to find deciduous food to bring back under the ice. But that is when predation occurs, predominantly for the beaver, is when it's on land, hunted more specifically by wolves or coyotes. But that's the whole purpose for building a pond and having a lodge in the pond, is so that it's surrounded by a giant moat, basically, and the bringing the stakes or the boughs under the water seals the energy inside. So they're harvesting now in late fall, so to have food throughout the winter. Now the challenge here also is that some of these skewers, some of these little stumps, they're right low to the ground. All right, so staying on trail is probably a safe option. But this winter, I will be wearing snowshoes, and I will just go straight to the ice. Hart Lake becomes my biggest playing field, right? You can run around, there's just acres of open land, and it allows me to better access. Winter is a great time of year for me to access more land. But I'm going to think twice about where I go, because there's just, when I get a foot or two of snow, it won't take much effort for me to put my snowshoe or even my bare foot on that, and I'm thinking about, the dog as well. There's all these skewers. And then as I walk around and notice, wow, there's, some of these are not new. Some of them are last year's. I can tell because the little pointed ends are browning. And, and then sometimes I know they're going to come back. They haven't finished the job yet. But as I look through the landscape, there's literally this zone between where the coniferous tree line ends along the shoreline and where the hardwood ridge is. There's this swath. It's about 30, 40 feet, but extends the whole shoreline. And as I look through the forest, it's clear. They have been busy. And I have to be very careful where I step, as not to literally impale myself. And I'm a little worried about the dog too. Some of the stumps are a little easier to see than others. All right, so they, yeah, they're going to stand out. But as I mentioned earlier, some of them are right low to the ground, and they're more thin. So yeah, I might just stick to the trail as often as I can. And it's I could come down with a saw or some loppers and cut them a little more flush, but well, it's not my space, right? Maybe if the beaver in my yard does it, and they do. I've planted hundreds of trees on my little property, and I've lost more than 80% of them to beaver in the spring as they look for new food. But that's something I might do in my own yard. But out here, nope. It's I have a path for a reason. I'm going to stick to it. But it is amazing for me to notice the impact of three adult beaver living on one body of water. It's something that I don't often see, and I see the impact. Barely notice one beaver's annual impact, but over the course of a couple generations, and three, yeah, they are leaving their mark. Now, there's going to be fewer trees available to mature, But because they're harvesting very specifically the deciduous trees and they're of a certain size, what I have noticed is they haven't touched any of the small coniferous trees. So there's a number of balsam, a number of small pine that were growing and struggling amongst the competition of that sapling or nursery area of the forest of deciduous trees. So by removing all the competition, I'm going to notice, maybe not in the first couple of years, but within the next 5 to 10 years, I'll notice those coniferous saplings that have been left behind. They will have so much more light, they'll have so much more air, and they'll have so many more resources in the ground available to give them. So they will not only flourish, but their structure, their growth habit will be a little bit different, more akin to what you might see of coniferous trees that were growing in a field, or in a nursery. When coniferous trees grow in a stand or a forest like this, they grow up as they compete. Well, if they're not relying on competition, especially for sunlight and air and resources, they will develop a little more fully all the way around, and they'll keep their branches, their lower limbs. So they'll take on a different shape, a little bit more of a uniform structure, as it were. So something to look forward to. So a little bit of a risk. I'll need to stay on the trail, keep the dog on the trail in that section, and looking forward to monitoring the success and growth of those coniferous saplings in the years to come. And yeah, you can see that just in the forest here behind me, there are no deciduous saplings. And again, as you notice just along the path, those are the drag marks of the beaver coming through and just clearing away the recent leaf litter as they drag fresh boughs from, the canopy or the hilltop of mostly deciduous beech and maple down to the lake. So just things that I find myself noticing and becoming aware of, and it gets me thinking, gets me curious about the immediate and long-term impact of animal populations. So there we go. A nice moon in the background. Thank you very much for watching. I appreciate your time, your energy, your support. I'll talk to you again soon. Thanks.